Hey guys, back again for the second time in 30 minutes. I wanted to do a follow-up video, actually going through a race and choosing pace lines based on this whole race shape theory that we're talking about here. And the first thing I did was, and it might make it helpful for a lot of you that aren't aware that you can do this, when you have your PP generator, all you got to do is go to File and go to Print All Races. And then what'll happen is it'll print it, and then you'll give it an option of print to PDF. And then make sure you have this little box clicked here, print to file. And then what'll happen is you'll save the file, and then you can open it up in your PDF editor. And I use Foxit Reader as my PDF editor. But what I want to do is I downloaded a file for Thistledown tomorrow. And I know in my last video I said I'm not going to do anything early in the week. But I'm going to take a look at some races at Thistledown. They seem to be pretty handicapper friendly. There's a lot of 6 furlong races on the dirt, mile races on the dirt. But what I want to do is I want to go and identify my pace lines here with you guys so that you can actually see where I'm looking at and what I'm looking for. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my highlight tool out. And I'm just going to highlight the pace lines and give the reasoning why. Okay, so for this one horse, this here actually is a 6 furlong race. $7,500 claiming. I'm going to pass this first race simply because I have options for 6 furlongs recent. And this is a 5.5. So I'm going to toss that race out. And also because of the finish here. It's a terrible finish. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go 2 back here. And being that this is only a -3 total when you total them together, I'm going to use this as pace line number 1. And then pace line number 2, I'm looking for a couple different things. I'm looking for a better race if I can find it. And when I say a better race, I'm looking for something that, you know, he ran well, didn't have to win the race, but he was in the race. And I'm also looking for something that with a good projected speed line. But now that we're using this theory, I'm also keeping in mind what's going on over here too. And I see that this race here is coming out to, when I do the math here, this is coming out to a +2, +4 -2, +2, and this was here was a -3. So I may decide to look at that race and use that one as my second pace line. Okay? If I don't want to go back to the 23rd, and I want to stay within this year, I could go and I could probably maybe use... Now we're going a little deep. We're using 2 races on the negative side. This one's even slower now, -9. I don't know if I would use that. But I may even go and do the... I don't know. I would probably stick with just that race there because I don't want to use the 5.5 furlong. I don't want to use this 5. So they would probably be my 2 pace lines I would use for that number 1. Now number 2, I'm in a situation here where I have 1 6 furlong race available, most recent. So I'm going to use that one. And that's a -1, -2. And then I don't have any others. Okay? So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to use one of the mile races if I can. If I can find one that runs decently. And probably use this one, +7, +5. And being that we pull our numbers from first call of a mile race is the half, and the second call here, the 3/4, opposed to here and here. Oh, sorry, let me go back and get rid of that if I can. See if I can find the... Oh, I don't know if I can, but anyways, we'll leave it like that. Before, in the past, the problem was, okay, well, the numbers are going to be a lot lower when you're pulling them over route because the fractions are going to be slower here. But we use the 46 as a standard for a half here, and we use a 44 as a standard for a half here. So as long as I'm pulling at least 1 pace line from a sprint race, I don't mind using the 46 and the 110 opposed to the 22 and the 44. It's still going to give me some ideal numbers, okay, or accurate numbers when it comes to giving me the comparing it with other sprinters. Now here we're in a situation where I don't want to reach down here for my first Paceline, so I'm going to have to use one of these 5.5s. So I'll just use this last one out. It's a -2, -3. And then what am I going to use for my second? Well, I'm going to look at for one of these 6 furlongs. We have a -5 here. -5, -8. Positive. I don't want to use another 5.5 furlong. So I would probably use the +1, -1, which is coming out to an actual 0. So those are the 2 races I would use in that situation there. Okay, the 4 horse, again, we have another router. Now this may be a race that I don't even play. But what I'm going to do is I don't want to look at these finishes here at a mile and say, oh, I'm just going to toss this horse. Because we're talking about a 6 furlong race today, and all we're worried about is these 3 calls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with this horse, a -7, this race, -7-0. I'll pull my figures from here and here, using a 46 as a standard and a 110. And then I'll try to find something from these 2 sprints down here, which I'm at the mercy of either a race that was with a terrible finish and a 53 speed rating, or the 71, the 7 furlongs. But at the same time, we're now looking at another race that run a little slower than normal. But again, you can't have it's not a perfect world. So I would use those 2 as my pace calls. The 5 horse, I can reach 2 back here. I'm going to go to this 6 furlong race for 2 reasons. 1, the last out was 5.5, and I can go 2 back and I can actually pull a 6 furlong race. And also, the pace wasn't as extreme on the slow end. We have a -14 total here. We only have a -3 total here. So that would be my pace line number 1. And my second pace line, I'm going to look for something that's close to 0, if I can find it on the positive side, that was run fairly well. Well, I have a couple options here. I could use this race. I could go back to here because of the +1, and I could use that race. I don't want to go too high. I don't want to go +10. Or I could even go with the +4. So what I would do in that situation is I already had that identified. I would go with the race with the highest speed rating, and this would be my second pace line, would come from this race. So using the double pace line grid, I'd have race 1 and then race 2 right here as my 2 choices. Okay, the 6 horse. Obviously, this last race, we're going to toss that one, and then we're going to use, come on, work with me here. We're going to use this race as the first pace line, and that works out well because that's only a +1. And then we're in a situation where, again, our hands are tied. We have a choice of, we have 2 sprints down here, and it would probably have to be this one because it's the one closest to 0, closest to this one, and we would use this as our second pace line. Now, again, even though we have a couple races with better speed figures, 71, 67, but here we're dealing with a mile. Here, at least we're dealing with 6 furlongs. Okay, and that's it. There's 6 horses, so that was good. It kept this video short. But that's how I would go about selecting my pace lines when I'm looking at keeping in mind the shape of the race. All right? All right, guys, thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.